left side. SYGI. Nice.
You're taking to mobile phone, right? See here some image from YouTube.
Ah, yeah. The thumbnail is not right. Okay. What? Not focus. Why?
The internet sucks.
Ah, yeah.
Oh, HD.
So any help if you want, you just let me know.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. We just finished. It has a delay of 10 seconds.
Started or ended?
Yeah.
That's a price that we get from watching.
While watching.
Oh god.
I'm gonna lose my seat. Sorry. Power from my computer.
Sharda ma'am?
My Sharda.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಆದರದ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ನನ್ನ ಪರವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಸಹೋದ್ಯೋಗಿಗಳ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಆದರದ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ಇವತ್ತಿಂದ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮನೂ ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷಲ್ಲೇ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಆರಂಭ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇನೆ. ಸೊ ವೆಲ್ಕಮ್ ಟು ಆಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಯು ಟು IGYS 2018. If you are standing around, please take a seat. We are going to start the program. We are already behind by 5 minutes, which is quite a lot of time in our schedule. We have several inaugural events we are going to have. There are 2 children who are going to be inaugurating the website. Can I get those 2 children to come here? Who are the 2 children who are going to be inaugurating the blog? Be quick and get them quickly, okay? All right. So let us begin with an auspicious singing by our Vidyanjali Academy for Learning singing group, or choir, I think so. Please, go ahead.
Is it fine if we give after 10 minutes? 10 to 15 minutes?
Yeah, 10 minutes.
Okay.
श्री पंचभूताय शांतिः। ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः। आकाशाय च विद्महे नभो देवाय धीमहि तन्नो गगनं प्रचोदयात्। तन्नो गगनं प्रचोदयात्। नीलवर्णव्यापिताय सृष्टिपितृस्वरूपाय सूर्यचन्द्रग्रहगमनाय ग्रहणभूताय शान्तये। नीलवर्णव्यापिताय सृष्टिपितृस्वरूपाय सूर्यचन्द्रग्रहगमनाय ग्रहणभूताय शान्तये। सर्वप्राणाय विद्महे यष्टिहस्ताय धीमहि तन्नो वायुः प्रचोदयात्। तन्नो वायुः प्रचोदयात्। धीमहनुमदात्मकार श्वास प्राण अपानाय मुक्तिभावसमानाय वायुभूताय शान्तये। धीमहनुमजन्मकार श्वास प्राण अपानाय पुरुषाय धीमहि तन्नो पुरुष प्रचोदयात् तन्नो पुरुष प्रचोदयात् ज्ञानधाराय वरुणाय प्रकृतिपुरुष विकासाय पापसंहार निरूप जनभूताय शान्तये ज्ञानधाराय वरुणाय प्रकृतिपुरुष विकासाय पापसंहार नदीरूप जनभूताय शान्तये वसुन्धराय विद्महे भूतधात्राय धीमहि तन्नो भूमिः प्रचोदयात् तन्नो भूमिः प्रचोदयात् सृष्टिमूलकर्ताय जीवमातृस्वरूपिणी त्यागसहनप्रतिरूपाय धरणीभूताय शान्तये सृष्टिमूलकर्ताय जीवमातृस्वरूपिणी त्यागसहनप्रतिरूपाय धरणीभूताय शान्तये धरणीभूताय शान्तये धरणीभूताय शान्तये
Thank you, Vidyanjali singers, for this lovely hymn. For those of you who did not understand what they were singing, that was a song invoking the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, sky. So, right? And each of them, the prayer was, what was it? Bless us, basically. Too much to translate. Okay. I think we should begin the proceedings on another auspicious note, and that is to light the lamp. Those of you who have been told to be ready to light the lamp, please walk up in your groups. Please light the lamp. We have. Please come. Please come. Please come. I'll read out the names of all the people who are going to be lighting the lamps today. We have Sneha and Syed Bilal from Model Primary School, Domasandra Sneha, from Ilma International School, Syed Bilal. Please come to the stage if you're here. Om Mishra and Anusha Bhatt from Vidyanjali. Please come up. Ananya Kulkarni from Chirek, Hyderabad. And Leo Michaels, who is a homeschooler in Chennai. We have from the board of Vidyanjali Academy for Learning, Mr. Lokesh Reddy and Mrs. Rekha Reddy. And we have our 2 geographers from the US, Dr. Susan Roberts and Dr. Heidi Nast. They light the lamp, thereby inaugurating the conference formally.
I'll check one of them.
No worries.
is it coming mirror image?
Internet. People have good internet to see. I'm trying to connect 3 devices.
Disconnect this one.
To see how it looks here. But you can use it on your phone also.
Is there no way we can zoom in?
Probably make the tripod.
Thank you all for the lighting of the lamp with which we have begun IGYS. With the invocation, we began the IGYS, in which Earth was also mentioned, geography. And now I request Mrs. Vidyanjali, the principal of Vidyanjali Academy for Learning, to give the formal welcome to all of us, all of you.
Honorable guests, students, teachers, parents, invitees and all the geography lovers. I welcome you all to the International Geography Youth Summit 2018. Geography is not just memorizing facts and figures. It's about building and sustaining benign and compassionate interrelationships among humans and between humans and the environment. Geography offers many tools to lead a sustainable life. When we understand and use geography concepts wisely, we also become good citizens of the earth. This conference gives opportunities for the young students to use geography tools to build and foster healthy relationships. We at Vidyanjali take this as a great opportunity to host this event for a great cause. On behalf of Vidyanjali, I am glad to welcome the brainchild of IGYS, Dr. Chandrasekhar Balachandran, who is the founder and director of the Institute of Geographical Studies, Bengaluru. Dr. Chandrasekhar is a geographer with over 30 years of teaching experience, ranging from kindergarten to 12th standard to postgraduate levels in India and the USA. Dr. Chandrasekhar established the Institute of Geographical Studies to help students learn the power of geography education, help teachers make classroom geography teaching exciting and rewarding, and help parents become active co-learners with their children. He writes a weekly geography column in the Deccan Herald Student Edition, Bengaluru. He also renders his service as a consultant for educational institutions on setting up geography education programs to enable curricular integration. We welcome you, sir. To share the journey of the Institute of Geographical Studies, today we have with us a human geographer, Dr. Muttata Ramanathan, Research Associate, Geography Education. Dr. Ramanathan has PhD in Geography from University of Washington. She is passionate about paying attention to the interrelationships between people and how they make sense of their landscapes. She fosters place-based learning, critical thinking and writing amongst high school and college students. We welcome you, ma'am. I take privilege to welcome Dr. Susan Roberts, Professor of Geography, Associate Provost for Internationalization, University of Kentucky, USA, who is a keynote speaker for this session. A special welcome to Dr. Heidi Nast, geographer at DePaul University, Chicago, and the Managing Trustee of Dharani, USA, members of Relief Foundation and Mantra for Change, who are the partners of IGYS 2018. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. Sir, Sri R. Lokesh Reddy is a generous personality who makes his life by giving. He is the managing trustee of Sri Ramai Reddy Educational Trust and the financial support and strength of Vidyanjali Academy for Learning. We wholeheartedly welcome you, sir. The quality of leaders is reflected in the standards they set for themselves. Mrs. S. Rekha Reddy, the founder chairman of Vidyanjali Academy for Learning and director of Vidyanjali Montessori Training Institute, is a great visionary who strongly believes that beautiful childhood leads to a beautiful world. The Montessori education provided at Vidyanjali is a finest indication for this. Mrs. S. Rekha Reddy is a Montessori teacher trainer, researcher and author. She has conducted many workshops and training programs throughout India and has presented research papers in various conferences. Leadership is not about a title or designation. It's about impact, influence and inspiration. Mrs. Rekha Reddy is recognized as one of the top 100 awakened and innovative mentors of India. So I extend a warm welcome to you, madam. Creativity is the act of turning new and imaginative ideas into reality. We have one such personality who thinks of creating new learning opportunities at Vidyanjali. She is none other than our administrator, Miss Swati Reddy. It is her thought which turned into reality today. That is hosting IGYS 2018 at Vidyanjali. We welcome you, Miss Swati Reddy. And my hearty welcome to the most important people of this event, the students, teachers, parents and other geography enthusiasts who with a lot of interest and enthusiasm perform primary research in the topics related to geographies of our daily needs and are here today to share it with the audience. I also welcome the chairpersons for the paper sessions of this conference and other members associated with the IGYS 2018 who are present here. Once again, on behalf of Vidyanjali, I welcome all the invitees for this conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vijayalakshmi, for this lovely welcome to all of us. We'll move on to the next thing. We would like to have Mrs. Reddy please come and say a few words.
To begin, thank you very much, Vidyanjali, you involved and welcomed everyone. And a warm welcome to you also. I thank Shekhar sir and I thank Dr. Susan Robert. Thank ma'am for being here, coming all the way from US. It shows your dedication and your interest in geographies. Many things we learn, we forget. We forget the things we learn because it doesn't apply to our daily life. So why do we forget geography? Few years back, in high school, there was a lesson, population explosion. What happens when population increases? So there was this little girl who was very impressed by this lesson, the effects of population. Whatever she sees in this society is because of population. That is what she learned. That day she decided, I am not going to have more than 2 children. Whether it is boys or girls, I am going to have only 2 children.
They have not connected it yet.
This was decided by that 14-year-old girl. And government did that, only 2 children. Nanage ibbaru, ala, navibbaru, namage ibbaru. How many years that went on? So many years. But that decision was taken by this little girl of 14 years, and today 5 million children are less in 2011 census. 5 million children or less. So Montessori says the construction of the society is done not by the adults, it is by the children. So if we want to bring any change in the society, it should start from the children.
I just need charge for my laptop.
So,
11%.
as Chandrasekhar sir and Susan Robert and Dharani Foundation has rightly put effort, you are trying to change the society or bring good change in the society starting from young children, from the children. So it is a good effort and I appreciate and I hope this would bring good change in the following world, in the future world. I wish every success in this endeavor and I hope all of you enjoy today's program today and tomorrow's and day after tomorrow's program and happy childhood and enjoy your teaching and enjoy your parenting, those who are parents. Thank you very much.
Since 2014, when we had the first Geography Youth Summit, we had called it National Geography Youth Summit, and we found that there were people from outside India also participating. So subsequently we started calling it IGYS, International Geography Youth Summit. And every summit there has been something new that happens. This year we are launching 2 geography blogs on the TIGS website, one in Tamil, another one in Kannada. So to inaugurate these 2 blogs, I've asked for 2 volunteers, they're here. They'll come here, open that particular blog page and read a few lines from the introductory statement, okay? All right. So to inaugurate the Tamil blog, we have Shubhasri from Vidyanjali Academy. Shubhasri, come.
வலைப்பதிவு. புவியியல் என்ற கருத்தாக்கம் வெறுமனே பாடப்புத்தகத்தில் இடம்பெறும் ஒரு சாதாரண அம்சமல்ல. அது இந்த உலகத்தினுடைய அனைத்து அத்தியாவசிய இயற்கை அம்சங்களான காற்று, நீர், உணவு மற்றும் வாழிடங்களுடன் மிக நெருக்கமாக பொருத்தி பார்த்து ஆராயத்தக்க நம் வாழ்வின் அடிப்படை ஆதாரத்துடன் தொடர்புடைய ஒரு இன்றியமையாத துறை. இந்த தமிழ் வலைதளிப்பு The Institute of Geographical Studies, பெங்களூர் மற்றும் ரிலீஃப் ஃபவுண்டேஷன் சென்னை இணைந்து மேற்கொண்டுள்ள ஒத்துழைப்பின் விளைவு. நன்றி.
So to inaugurate the Kannada blog, to inaugurate the Kannada blog, we have Vishakha, also from Vidyanjali Academy for Learning.
ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸೇರಿರುವ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಭೂಗೋಳ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರವನ್ನು ಪಠ್ಯಪುಸ್ತಕಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಓದಿ ಬೇಸತ್ತವರಿಗಾಗಿ ಬರೆಯುವ ಬ್ಲಾಗ್ ಇದು. ಭೂಗೋಳ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲೂ ಕಾಣಿಸುತ್ತದೆ. ಭೂಗೋಳ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಕ್ಕೂ ಎಲ್ಲ ವಿಷಯಗಳಿಗೂ ಇರುವ ಸಂಬಂಧಗಳನ್ನು ಹುಡುಕಿ ಅದರ ಸ್ವಾರಸ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ನಿಮ್ಮೊಡನೆ ಹಂಚಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವುದೇ ಈ ಕನ್ನಡ ಬ್ಲಾಗ್ ಲೇಖನಗಳ ಉದ್ದೇಶ. ಇವುಗಳನ್ನು ಓದಿ ಈ ಸ್ವಾರಸ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ನೀವು ಕಾಣಿ. ಇತರರೊಡನೆಯೂ ಹಂಚಿಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದ.
So with that, we have achieved another first in our ongoing IGYS efforts. Every year we start with a brief review of IGYS's journey, and a lot of the guidance for the philosophy of IGYS and how we look at geography at IGYS comes from our next person who's going to take us very briefly through our journey in our geography education work, Dr. Mutata Ramanathan, please. You want that?
Good morning and a very warm welcome to all of you. We are very proud to begin our fourth annual conference here at Vidyanjali Academy for Learning. I'm a research associate at TIGS, and I've been volunteering my efforts with Chandra for the last 4 years, and it's given me a lot of personal satisfaction. I'm a geographer by training. I have a 4-year-old daughter, so right now I'm not working, I'm at home, but I write, and I'm always a geographer, always observing things and trying to put things together in my head. So I'll just take a few minutes to share our history in TIGS, the Institute of Geographical Studies, in order to connect all of you to our ever-growing community of geographers. And one of the things we enjoy doing in TIGS is not giving you information. We would like to share with you a lot of our sensibilities. There's enough information. We live in an age of information, so there's always information at your fingertips. All you need to do is click a mouse or swipe rather, which is what my daughter keeps asking me for. She just wants to keep swiping things now. So I'll tell you a little bit about our personality in TIGS. TIGS was started in the year 2000 for the love of a discipline, the discipline of geography. Now, I just want to ask some of you, what word comes to your mind when you think about the word discipline? What comes to your mind when you think about the word discipline?
Oh, it just came.
Anyone?
It's fine. It's
Discipline.
working.
Order, okay. Keeping things organized, okay. Yeah. Sorry? Systematic living, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Can someone help me? Cleanliness, okay. Sorry? Subject, okay. Is that so? Yeah. Self-maintenance. Okay, I'm very impressed with the audience here. Very, very positive thoughts come to your mind. So that means we're moving into the 21st century. Unlike when Chandrasekhar and I went to school, for us, the word discipline conjured control, fear, those kinds of negative connotations. So maybe the work is already being achieved, the work that we need to do. But anyway, coming back to TIGS, so we, specifically Chandrasekhar, felt in the late 1990s, that there was a sense of control that was stifling young minds in this discipline of geography. That geography that was being taught in schools and colleges was not really a geography that gave everyone the freedom to be who they are in this world. And I related a lot to that as well. So he started TIGS in 2000 to undiscipline the discipline of geography. So through the course of the years, we've endeavored through our various activities and programs to remove the study and the learning and the experience of the discipline away from just being a label, from just being a vehicle for promotions, from just being an exam, or just being a poor cousin to history and economics. or just another line on your mark sheet, or just another requirement for an IAS exam. So, would you agree, Chandra? Yeah, okay. So what we have instead tried to do is infuse into the discipline a sense of personal connection. Just like you feel, all of you kids feel a sense of personal connection with your mother or father or your favorite toy or your pet, if any of you have a pet at home. We want you to feel a sense of personal connection to learning. So when you listen or read or speak about a geographical theme, and there's no theme that doesn't have geography in it, we want each of you to feel a sense of truth and confidence about what you're saying. Okay? So today, what are some of the moments when children know exactly what they're speaking about? I have a 4-year-old daughter, and when I look at her, I think she's most certain when she's articulating her feelings and her desires and her likes and dislikes, and she says, Amma, I want this, or Amma, I don't want that. And there's a great sense of certainty. And I notice as many children grow older, they begin to pay attention to many other external frames of reference, right? Not what is in you, what society sees as right or wrong, what parents say, what teachers say, you know, what their favorite media character says, what advertisements say. And then they begin to filter their knowledge about the world and about who they are through these external filters, right? And needless to say, adults are worse than children. We have internalized these filters so much that we believe these filters are the truth. So finally, it is these filters that end up disciplining one's knowledge, right? And since we are the ones who make a subject what it is, it indirectly disciplines what the content of the subject becomes, right? You follow what I'm saying? We start responding to external filters. So I'll give you an example. I know this 9-year-old girl who lives near my house, and every day I walk past her house. One day, and I often see in her balcony, you know, who's come home and, you know, who's visiting her house. And her grandmother often visits her from Kerala. So one day I saw her grandmother, I spoke to her, said hello, and when I walk by, I also get these very nice aromas of what they're cooking. And that day there was this unmistakable aroma of fish curry. And then later I ran into this 9-year-old girl and I said, hey, so you're having a nice time? Your grandma's come from Kerala. What is she cooking for you? Because I'm always going through my life thinking about what I'm going to eat the next meal. So then she looks at me and I think she's going to say fish curry. And I can see her eyes rolling to the back of her head, and she says, she made pasta today. So now this is, so this really struck me, and I kept thinking about this, and I kept thinking, you know, she took a few minutes to search her head for an appropriate answer, and she changed the geography of her food in her house through that answer, right? So what should have been fish curry from Kerala became pasta from Italy or the Americas or, you know, the broadly defined Western world, right? So this is an example of an external filter we use to understand who we are, right? We create an identity through these external filters and we shape ourselves to become that. You see what I'm saying? And so we lose contact with who we are. We lose contact with our geography, with our sense of self, where we come from. So that's what I'm trying to impress upon you. And Chandra and I are constantly troubled by this. So, so now coming back to what adults do, we accept these filters so much that we don't even spend a minute trying to find an answer that is not the truth, right? We're always lying. I want my child to go to the best school I can afford, that has this facility, that has that facility, the best. And did I really ask my child what my child wants, or do I just want this because I want my child to go to a school so that I feel a sense of completeness, that I have done the right thing, maybe for a sense of status, or because I look good in society. You see what I'm saying? So there are a lot of external filters that adults are also responding to, and a lot of it is money, power, control. I'm not saying that we need a world without these things. We can't have a world without any of these things. But if we can respond to these filters after we have understood who we are and who our personal geographies are, then we can make a lot more empowering choices. So what we've done in TIGS is we are a non-profit organization, and we need funds to organize such conferences. Not a lot of money, but we need some money for printing materials, for food and logistics. And so in our history of TIGS, we conduct a lot of workshops. You'll find all that information online. I don't want to give you information of what Chandrasekhar has been doing and what we've been doing in the conferences. But in order to raise funds, we've approached a lot of philanthropic organizations. And in our journey, what we have found is very often these philanthropic organizations have told us, yes, we would like to give you money, but in the process, this is the kind of geography we want you to have in your conference. Geography means green. Geography means environment. Geography means sustainable development, right? Is that all that geography is about? It's become to be. And we feel a lot of it is because of the money power of a lot of big companies which are creating a trend of sustainable development. And so we decided, okay, we don't need the money because we don't want to operate based on external filters. We want to do geography that we believe in, and we want to equip young geographers and teachers to learn to believe in themselves and understand a subject and a discipline in their own mind, so that when they stand up and they have to answer a question, they do it with complete confidence and complete truth, and they don't need to look behind their shoulders. These are the kinds of geographers and citizens that we endeavor to create. And if you stay through the course of the 3 days with us, you will notice that in every session, this is the kind of sensibility that we are trying to create. So this is really what TIGS is about. I'm really happy to see many old faces and new ones too, and I look forward to meeting everyone. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Vidyanjali Academy. So basically, TIGS is like a river. We just flow through the path of least resistance. Every year, there's a host, a gracious host who invites us, and we end up realizing that actually we don't need that much money, and we can create a really nice conference and a space. So thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Muttata Ramanathan, for this sharing of the journey. Every year there is a host institution that makes things possible, but this year is Vidyanjali Academy for Learning. Thank you very much. Dr. Muttata said we don't go out seeking funds from corporations and so on. We have a sister organization in the United States called the Dharani USA, of which Dr. Heidi Nast is the managing trustee. They raise funds for us from whatever funds we are able to raise there, we raise those from geographers mainly in America. It is happening because people are saying what you guys are presenting, what kinds of work children are doing, and that is taken very seriously. I wish I could say the same about professional geographers in India. So far it's not been true, except for one or two cases. But Dharani USA is one of those major allies that we have, and the host institutions every year as well. Okay. So now I have to do some amount of what I think of as housekeeping detail. So please have your schedules and a pen or pencil ready. I have to give you some changes in the schedule that I have to mention. Give me a moment. uh, this I know this by memory because I've done this every year. Okay, okay. Please come and sit down. Make yourself comfortable. I'll wait for you. Please make yourself comfortable. Chairs ಸಾಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕಟ್ಟೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ನೋ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್. ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೋದಲ್ಲ ಕಟ್ಟೆ ಮೇಲೆ. If there aren't enough chairs, sit on the katte, the wall. Okay? I think we have students from our partner organization from Mantra for Change. They are settling in there. The reason I'm waiting for people to be seated is those chairs make a lot of noise if they're moved around. That's why. Okay. There are some things that I need to make sure that we all have the same kind of information. At TICS, at IGYS, we have a very precisely crafted conference culture. So I'll walk you through some of those things that we have to know. First and most important, you will see a lot of students with a red tag on them. If they have a red tag, they are volunteers. First thing you need to know is where the bathrooms are. Around that corner is a toilet. On every floor, there are boys and girls toilets that you can use. Most important thing, okay? So, any other information you want, talk to one of the volunteers who has a red tag. They'll be able to guide you without any problem. So, they are our most important guides today. Alright. So, in terms of the conference and how we conduct the conference, each presenter has been given a certain amount of time. Within that time, how they want to use it is entirely up to them. This is their time, they are the scholars, we'll sit and listen. But at the end of the 20th minute, they are over, they are done. They have to step aside, let the other next people come and present. Every session will have a chairperson who will be the moderator and will make sure that the discussions keep continuing. And they will also keep time. So, I'll show you what these sheets look like in just a moment. So, when you are speaking, keep one eye available to keep an eye on the chairperson. The chairperson might hold this up. Green colored sheet, it says 10 minutes left. There's your marker. Be aware that this is the time you have left. After that will be a buff colored paper, 5 minutes left. After that, time's up. When this is shown, even in mid-sentence, you just turn yourself off, sit down, that's it. There will be no such thing as I have to make one more point, I have to show 2 more slides. No, not available. Okay? This is very strictly followed. And I tell you this because in every conference we have had, we have mentioned this to children, not once has any team said we need to show 2 more slides, can we have 2 minutes? Not once. That is how disciplined children are who come to IGYS. And we really appreciate that. At the end of each session, there is one 20-minute time slot for questions and answers. Each of the 3 or 4 teams that have presented, they will all come to the front. All the team members will be available. The audience can ask questions, make comments, share suggestions, whatever, with the team. But we have a condition. Before you ask a question or make a comment or anything, if you are talking to a particular team, you have to make one very precise, specific observation that you liked about their presentation. You have to pay them a compliment first. This is very important because a lot of children, they're presenting for the first time in public. Many of them come from non-English speaking backgrounds and they've gone through a lot of trouble to prepare what they're presented. So we start with a compliment and then we ask a question very politely. There is no challenging anybody, it is only because we want to learn. Okay? So that will be also for 20 minutes. At the end of the 20th minute, it's over. If you want to carry the conversations on, by all means meet the team outside the schedule. Meet them, no problem. Which brings me to the next point, and that is the natural tendencies for all the children from one school to stick together. Don't do that. At IGYS, we want you to mingle with everybody, learn to make friends, talk to people, find out what they are going to be presenting on. Yeah? So don't be constrained by any kind of boundary that you cannot talk to somebody. No, please talk to people. We have two geographers from the US. We have Dr. Ramanathan here. We have teachers. We have so many students presenting. Talk to them. Find out what makes them tick. What is it that they love about geography? It is for you to do that. This is my challenge to you. I don't want to be able to see any school as a group. I want to see only mixed groups. Boys and girls, schools of different kinds of schools. Mix, learn. The conference is not for you to sit in your own group and, cocoon yourself. No. You have to meet people. The whole idea is meeting people here. So, any of you school students who did not understand what I just said, did you understand what I said? If you understood, put your hand up, please. I want to see. Okay. Some hands are going very slowly. All right. Good. So please make sure you meet a lot of people. Make new friends. The conference is something time to live it up. That's kind of like a party as well. We keep it very informal in some respects. Okay. All right. In terms of certificates, a lot of people are concerned about certificates that will be given only on the last day. After everything is done, on your way out, you collect your certificates. They'll be by school. They'll be bundled by school. So each individual getting the certificate, not happening. Okay? We won't have long vote of thanks. My favorite vote of thanks was from one of the conference dinners in the American Association of Geographers. Some very eminent geographer had given a talk. He was given X amount of time. Exactly on the road it was done. This was the vote of thanks. Thank you all for coming. Good night. That's my favorite vote of thanks. I have an Indian version of vote of thanks which I love to do, but we won't have time for it. I'll show you how it's done. Briefly, I'll give you an idea. All right? So, there is going to be a little bit of adjustment to the schedule because I was seeing so many things. I made some mistakes. I'll announce the correction just now. Throughout the day, there will be coffee, tea, I think hot chocolate or something. There will be thing there. So, when we say this is your coffee tea break, that's your coffee tea break. Once that is done, please go to the various sessions that are going on, whichever session you want to go to. Adults have this tendency to linger. I'm one of them. So if you see an adult lingering at the coffee station instead of being in a session, gently remind them. Should you not be in a session right now? Or which session are you going to? It has started right now, no? Just do that. I announced this in the first IGYS. We never had any adults standing around. They would all run. Because fear some kid will come and tell me that I should go to the session. So I'm using you to have discipline. Okay. Also, lunch will be slightly at different times on each day. Please get to the lunch counters. Have your lunch as quickly as possible. Lunchtime is another occasion for you to meet other people and talk to them. Learn about them. So do that as well. Any meal time, any coffee time, these are all times when you can meet other people and build up, start some kind of friendship. All right? I also want to, for all the 3 days, we have our 2 geographers from the US. Dr. Mutata will be here on Sunday. She won't be able to come tomorrow because, remember, she has a 4-year-old daughter who needs to be cared for. So there are so many geography teachers around. I'm kind of running around, but that's okay. Come and chat with us. Gossip, network. Okay, do that. So let me tell you what the schedule changes are. Please go to day 2, Saturday 21 July. Is the team for tomorrow's plenary talk here? Faizal, Sarah and Misbah, are you here? Please put your hand up so I can see where you are. Good. So tomorrow, instead of starting at 9:30, we will be starting at 9. Yeah, because most of the registration work is done today. We'll be starting at 9, not 9:30. Sir, yeah? Okay. So 9 to 9:45 will be the taboo geographies of menstruation, which is one of the most amazing presentations we have had in our years of IGYS. This year we invited them to come and give a plenary talk because boys, men, everybody should hear what they have to say. Because it's a problem for all of us and the solution is in all of us. So we'll deal with that tomorrow. 9 to 9:45. In your schedule it says 10:15 to 10:30 tea break, no tea break. When you have a chance in the day, get your tea. So 9:45 the plenary talk is done. We give you 5 minutes to get to your rooms. So 9:50 to 11:30 a.m. are paper sessions. Session 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. That slot is 9:50 to 11:30. Okay? So that first round ends at 11:30. The second round begins immediately. So the second round will be as scheduled 11:30 to 1:10 p.m. and then the lunch as scheduled. Lunch will be simple. For 3 days, I am running on adrenaline. I don't need food. So, okay. I hope that is clear. Is it clear? Do you want me to repeat any of this stuff? We are all fine? Good. All right. Please, in your conference kits, you will find a small notepad. Very convenient to hold in your hand and write. Keep that handy. Take notes. Take notes. Choose your sessions. Whichever interests you, go. Don't go to sessions that only your classmates are presenting. Go to different sessions, spread out. And then after you go back after IGYS, meet and talk about which sessions did you go to? What did you learn from this session? These are all things you should be able to gather from the 3 days that you are here. Don't stay with your own group. I cannot emphasize that enough. Get out of your group, learn what people are doing. When you go back to school, talk about it amongst yourselves. If your school has the practice of having an assembly, talk at the assembly. We went to this conference called the International Geography Youth Summit. This is what we learned there. Okay? Likewise, teachers, please share with your students what you found at IGYS that was interesting to you. Okay. Let me just, this afternoon we have 4 different workshops organized. It's on a first come, first served basis. Here we are going to have a workshop on integrated movement. This is a large auditorium, so a lot of people can participate here, not a problem. The others are in the classrooms, so the room will be limited, so you'll have to get there early to get a place there, alright? Okay. The workshop descriptions are given in your program brochure. So this morning we are doing very good time. We are fine. So I think I've covered all the things that I want. By the way, one of the things is that TICS and at IGYS, we do not discriminate against anybody on the basis of anything. We are an inclusive, welcoming organization and event. So please be very mindful of that. Treat everybody, each other with great deal of courtesy and politeness. And during all sessions, after this session to all sessions, if you are carrying a cell phone with you, please put it, at least put it on silent and do not check messages throughout the talk because that's very insulting to whoever is presenting. Part of the etiquette of IGYS. So if any of you see somebody using their cell phone during the session, gently tell them, put that away. If there is any consequence, come and talk to me, we'll deal with it. Alright? So people are very, very polite about this. Just remind them gently. Yeah? Please put it away because it's disturbing. If I'm presenting something, they're sitting there checking the messages, it means that what I'm saying is not of importance to me. I don't care what is more important. So don't do that. Alright? Okay. Before we break for coffee tea, does anyone have any questions? More than welcome to ask any questions you might have. Just put your hand up and I can come there and you can ask whatever questions you want. Yeah? Good. All right. So, once again, welcome to. Yes, you have a question. Hang on, I'll be right there. Very carefully. So minor question that doesn't affect everyone, so that's all right. Any other questions? All right, fine. So let me see how we are doing in terms of time. Good. Time for coffee tea break. It's behind us. I think it's behind us. Please have a great 3 days. Any help you need, talk to the volunteers, have some coffee or tea, and then get ready for the sessions. Workshops.
Sugar and tea. Huh? Do you get sugar and tea? Yes.
Now it's a short break.
How did it go? It went well, I think. It went like a live stream, da. It went like not funny.
I got only 5 minutes. 5 minutes and 9 minutes live streaming.
Which?
First,
Okay.
the testing. Testing also came live. What we were all discussing, no? It is there. It's better you can delete.
The first part.
Yeah, we'll delete the previous
Maybe
testing
2 minutes 59 seconds.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it is there. Just
Okay.
now I saw.
Yeah, I'll test it.
Yeah,
That's one and one more maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'll do that in just a second. I just
No one is watching.
Oh.
it'll be on YouTube, so people can watch it later.
ನಾಳೆಗೆ 10:30 ನೀರಜ್ ಮುನ್ನಾಡಿ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ 4 நினைக்கிறேன் சரி
Same thing. Okay, if you telecast to Narendra Modi, so here the importance will be given to everyone. That is the main drawback of
class 4 okay all the best thank you
coming.
No, I'll figure this out later.
You don't need this right now, right?
Yeah. Come. I'll leave my stuff here. No one's going to do anything. I hope. Or you want to go grab it and then you come here?
Yeah, let's go grab it. Turn off, come. Leave it there, nothing's going
Yeah,
on.
one second. I just want to plug in my laptop.
It's already plugged in, isn't it?
No, it's not charging here.
Then? It's connected, right?
The other one.
This is also your laptop. Wait, remove that. Put it in No. Your laptop charging now.
I guess it's charging. Mac is also charging. Yeah, 100, fine.
Come.
If you want to plug your cover.
I have eaten one.
I sent a response back to some friend that came from saying that this was not very sure. I don't know, I don't remember which one, but one Vidyanjali one I got, I sent back. After that I couldn't hide. Nothing has changed, so it was not accepted. So at least we cannot accommodate it. I still start with this. This is what happened today.
I like to eat. There should be right by where they gave the TICS.
Okay.
session are you attending?
I have no clue. I'm supposed to live
What?
I'm supposed to live the workshop.
Dharani, USA. She has been a supporter of my work long before I even came back to India. So we are very old friends. One of the things that she has always said is that the work that's going on here, the work that is going on in IGYS by children especially is very important work, and my colleagues, my friends in America in the geography community are paying attention and very encouraging of what we're doing. So this morning what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Heidi to introduce our speaker for the day, our keynote speaker for the day, Dr. Susan Roberts. Heidi will take 5 minutes, not 6. Okay. So Heidi is going to take 5 minutes to set the stage for the topic of today's talk. Okay, over to you, Heidi.
Okay, so I am so incredibly impressed by the educational work of my friend and colleague, Dr. Chandra Balachandran, whom, as he mentioned, I've known for decades and with whom I've been working for nearly 20 years. I'm also incredibly taken by the commitment of the administrators, faculty, and children at Vidyanjali Academy for Learning, without whom this beautiful event would not be taking place. And to all of those who have helped to make TIGS and this event possible, TIGS is helping to remake geography in India through the freedom-loving hearts and minds of Indian children, and it's an exciting event. So before I introduce Sue, Dr. Balachandran and I had talked about referring a little bit to last year's IGYS summit. And after the International Geography Youth Summit of 2017, which I attended last year, we sat down to discuss what we thought were the highlights of that summit. And as those of you at the summit recall, the conference theme was citizen geography, a theme intended to get participants thinking about if and how geography was linked to citizenship. The summit presentations proved in a very public way how formidable 7th through 12th grade students can be in their thinking. Over a period of 2 days, student participants and adults listened to presentations from a range of creative and critical student thinkers, who took obvious pleasure in exploring real-world questions and doing so in collaboration with others. Because 12 to 18-year-old students are generally not seen as a major political threat to the nation state or to the functioning of capitalism, because they would be called revolutionaries, the research of the students was bold. There was no oversight. Such boldness was seen in a presentation by 2 young high school girls on the inadequacy and puffery of traffic policemen at a roundabout near their school. It was also evident in another team's presentation on the difficulties that Muslim girls face when they are kept inside during their menstrual periods. To some extent, this boldness is afforded by the fact that those in power could actually care less about what children have to say. That is, adult disregard at these higher levels actually provides you with a lot of academic freedom. The freedom to think outside the confines of how people want you to think. And that is precious. It allowed us then to move beyond a notion of citizenship that was narrowly defined, and has always been narrowly defined in terms of just the single nation state. So one group, for instance, as you will recall, focused on why urban sparrows in Bengaluru have become so scarce. This question was not prompted by nationalist concerns for the Indian populace, but by a concern for a very small bird. The team argued that for the birds to come back, urbanites have to invite them. Invitations can be given, they argued, by providing the birds with birdhouses, which can be hung in various locations, including on verandas and balconies. Another research team explored pollution and identified water as the elixir of life, quote unquote. For them, water pollution has come about not because of pollutants, but because humans treat water as if it is not precious, as something that can be used up and wasted. They therefore use their scientific insights not to explore or promote technological solutions, but to foreground how value comes ultimately from life, not from money. So Dr. Balachandran and I ended our discussions last year by considering how the citizen geography we observed was reorienting ideas of citizenship through children's work away from state-based preoccupations with individual protections and rights and towards the idea that care itself is a radical geographical act, one that no state, no nation state can or should prescribe. The presentation has highlighted for all of us how the spatial and relational nature of care is transformative, and that transformation is what citizen geography can produce. Power that operates regardless of the actual success or failure of your projects. That said, we wanted to think about how we could continue to expand the horizon of citizen geography by prompting additional, important, if underemphasized questions that students might pursue that were not pursued last year. And that has to do with power. How does power, or the structures of social and economic inequality, affect our abilities to navigate and create existing and new spaces and geographies of care? To give an example, the presentation that we heard about on birdhouses was useful in that it got us all thinking about the non-monetary value of sparrow lives. But what would happen if those same students had explored who built the large banks of cell towers in Bengaluru that have been said to be responsible for sparrow deaths? In other words, how might they explore how money-making is tied to sparrow deaths? And would moneymakers even value their presentation? It is these more complicated questions that this year's conference theme of the geographies of our daily needs brings to bear. And as the abstracts that I went through on the web last night made clear, needs are never simple things that are simply met. Needs are as much made as they are met. So one set of researchers that I looked at last night that we're presenting here is exploring where those with mental illness are geographically located and what resources in their area might be available to them. But the abstract of that research also points out that those with mental illness are often those who are most impoverished, which points to how geographies of despair make mental illness. In geographies of our daily needs terms, do the mentally ill need more drugs and bigger hospitals that would hide the origins of their illness? Or should we as thinkers, creative thinkers of space, think about how geographies of care can create spaces in which no one has to go crazy? Indeed, all of the abstracts I saw in the program for the next few days point to the question of how power creates certain negative geographies of needs that no one should have, especially in the context of children laborers, illiterates, villagers, and others. Can you hear me? Okay. So you are all then working with those whose stories need to be brought to life. Put simply, the family spaces, for instance, of the wealthiest families do not contain spaces where they put their own children to work for the family's economic benefit. Rather, they create spaces within which they can contain or use the children of the poor for their own economic benefit. So then how do we as geographers begin to think about how to question and study spatial inequalities? And these are the issues that Dr. Susan Roberts and I will be addressing in one of the workshops that takes place at 11:45 following this, her address. And power also lies at the center of her keynote. I first met Dr. Roberts at the University of Kentucky long before the vast majority of you were even born, back in 1992. I had gone there after my doctoral studies in Canada for a 2-year research position at her university. I could not have been luckier, for Dr. Roberts turned out to be an exceptional mentor, scholar, and friend. I owe her a lot and try to pay back her many kindnesses by relaying them forward, including in the work that I do for TICS. Dr. Susan Roberts obtained her doctorate a year earlier than when I got there, from Syracuse University, located in an exceptionally cool geography of New York State, where the geographies of daily winter needs are defined by very warm coats and hot meals. Her doctoral research was pathbreaking. She mapped out how enormously wealthy people hide their money in banks and investments in the Cayman Islands to avoid paying taxes. These hugely wealthy people have created perverse geographies of need. In this case, the need to accumulate obscene levels of wealth without contributing to the nation state where they are citizens. It's wrong. Indeed, much of her work examines how the wealthiest and most powerful act as though they have the greatest of geographical needs. One recent project she's doing, or has done, involves studying why the most powerful governments and commercial interests use surveillance to study us through such things like satellites and drones. Why are they spying and collecting data on vast tracts of planetary life? The need of the rich, quote unquote, and the powerful to know everything is fueling the relatively new field of geographical inquiry called Geographical Information Systems, or GIS. Their hope is that GIS will allow them to decipher patterns in the data that will be of strategic, economic, and political use to them. More recently, Dr. Roberts began collaborative research that centers on how poorly treated and impoverished indigenous persons in a particular area of Mexico have been organizing to create their own autonomous region. It is poor people who are driving this initiative. They no longer want to stay or be part of a nation state run by racial and economic elites who make the poor serve the geographical needs of the wealthy. 2 years ago, the University of Kentucky recognized her geographical acumen as well as her formidable people skills when they asked her to become the university's Associate Provost of Internationalization. In her current capacity, Dr. Roberts works on many fronts, bringing greater international content into undergraduate and graduate curriculum, finding monies for underprivileged and underrepresented students to study at other universities overseas for at least part of the year, recruiting international students to study at her university, cultivating new study abroad programs in China for University of Kentucky students, and cultivating joint and collaborative programs with universities outside the US, including one in Bangalore. I cannot imagine a better speaker to give the keynote to you today on the geographies of daily need, and it therefore gives me great pleasure to introduce you to my wonderful friend and colleague, Dr. Susan Roberts.
Now it's her now.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me at the back? Okay, good. Big thank you to Dr. Balachandran for his leadership of TIGS and for working with Dr. Nast to invite me to be with you here today. I am so proud, so honored, and so excited to be here. The program looks excellent, and the thing that I am most looking forward to is all the presentations by the students. The abstracts are amazing, and I look forward to learning a lot from you guys. Thank you to my old friend, Dr. Nast, for her kind introduction. It's always a bit embarrassing to be introduced, but we'll move on and let's get started. So, geography often starts with a map, doesn't it? Oops, what have I done? Excuse the technical difficulties. Okay, so geography often starts with a map, doesn't it? And people think geography is all about maps. But what I'd like you to do for a moment is close your eyes and think of a world map. Okay, just close your eyes and think of a world map and have that picture in your head for a minute. Okay, you're still thinking of a world map. That's good. It was supposed to be a quick thing. What kind of a map is in your head? I am betting that it's probably a map that's kind of flat, that's kind of rectangular, that probably has the northern hemisphere on the top, the southern hemisphere on the bottom. Is that right? Yeah, okay. That's the typical world map that we see. I'm also thinking, okay, hang on a sec. Let's see if we can fix this. Okay, I'm imagining that the world map that many of you thought about was actually a world political map. I asked the same question to Google. I said, Google, think of a world map. And what Google came up with was a bunch of world political maps. These are maps with the world divided into countries. And that's the kind of typical imagination of global space that we see often. Yeah, that's okay.
It's a little better. Why? Why are you doing that? Because it's fun. You need to check that.
Slideshow. Go to slideshow. That's what we're doing. Please.
Yeah, it's fine now.
Just come, maybe.
It's a deal.
And like just talking. Every signature just mirrored again.
It's right.
This is our religions. This is our
It takes so long for
yeah, for a couple of
yeah. No, it just mirrored again. Let me see if I can find a GIF file.
Earth.exe.
What's exe?
Last time we had it from.
Is that is like
be a program? I was joking. The yoga confused me. Shruti Jiva.
Ramwal. What is he doing?
Hooray, thank you. Thank you for your patience. So, a world map. What we think about is often this geography of countries, right? We can see the United States, we can see Russia, we can see all the big countries, India. We can recognize their shapes, and it seems very familiar. But what I want to do today is take you through a little thought experiment around the issue of needs, to think about how we undo and unlearn that map a little bit as a starting place. So I'm an economic geographer. As Dr. Nast explained, I study economic patterns. And what's most interesting to an economic geographer are thematic maps. So these are maps not just of countries, but of something, right? Something substantive. And in this case, I just chose a random map. It happens to be a map of where potatoes are grown, right? Where farmland is devoted to the cultivation of potatoes. So you can see it's actually about nothing really to do with the nation state, yet still, can you see on this map, can you see all the borders? They're out there as an outline. So really we have something about a potato, but it's got the nation state underneath it, kind of like a ghost in the map. And that's very typical, that we just take it for granted that potatoes go with countries, right? Now you could argue they do through agricultural policy and such, but maybe it needs to be questioned also. A very common world map that people show when they want to learn about, or that they look at when they want to learn about needs of people, is a map of the economic wealth or income of different countries. So this is a very typical map. You've probably got it in some of your textbooks. It's a map of gross national product or gross national income, and what that is the value of the entire economy of a country kind of added up for a year, and then it's divided by the number of people in that country. So a very big economy which has a very small population turns out to be a very rich economy, right? It has a high GNP or GNI per capita, per person. So Switzerland would be an example of a country with a very big economy and not very many people to share it. So they have a very high GNP per capita. And on this map, that's colored dark red. The blue countries are the other end of the spectrum. They are the countries where there's a relative small economy and a lot of people to share it. So they end up in a category that is at the other extreme from, say, Switzerland or Norway or something like that. And this is a typical way of so-called explaining how basic needs get mapped or their geography. But I put it to you that it's really a kind of map that raises more questions than gives us answers. It doesn't really tell us why this is like this, right? And that's the question that has preoccupied me for my academic career and really as a person since I was little. I've often thought about why is it that some places are very rich and some places are very poor. Some people are very rich and some people are very poor. So economic geographers, development people, lots of people look at maps like this. Some people, though, said, well, actually, looking at that is a very crude measure because you're just taking the whole economy and dividing it by everybody in that country, and all you're getting is an average. For those of you in math class, it's a mean, right? It's just a very crude measure. It doesn't tell us anything about how that economic activity is distributed within that country. It doesn't tell us if one part of the country is very poor and another part may be very rich. You can probably think of examples. It also doesn't tell us if one class of people actually control a vast majority of that economy and a lot of people are left out of any part of that economy. So in other words, it's too crude. So in the 1960s and 70s, a lot of people started saying, well, maybe we shouldn't look at maps like that. We should look at maps of poverty because it's actually poverty that we care about, right? We don't care about the whole economy in some abstract sense. We care about why people are poor and how to help them and how to actually get rid of extreme poverty. So maps like this became quite popular. This is a map of poverty, and it's a map that says it maps the share of the population in each country that is living on less than $1.90, that's a US dollar, 90 per day in 2013. And you can see it's actually not that different in terms of its pattern from the other map, but it has a slightly and important different starting point. It's starting with poverty, not overall economic status. of her country. Then in the 1970s, an organization called the International Labour Organization said poverty actually really isn't the right way to think about it either. It's not really getting us to any kind of concrete measures here. It's still very crude, and it doesn't really take into account the different way that people live their lives. In other words, you can live, maybe you can live in some place on $1.90 a day. Maybe in another place it would be impossible. You can think of this in your own country, in your own state. I live in a place called Kentucky. Unfortunately, it is this place from which Kentucky Fried Chicken gets its name. Sorry about that. But it's actually quite a poor part of the United States of America. What that means is I can live in Kentucky on actually not very much money. I'm lucky I don't have to. I have a good job. But it is possible. If I was in New York City, in Manhattan, or if I was in San Francisco, impossible for me to live on very little money. Impossible. So you can imagine there's all kinds of differences and problems with that poverty approach. Anyway, the International Labour Organization held a conference in 1976, a very, very long time ago, and it had a very long name, but it became known as the World Employment Conference. And at that conference, they said the way to eliminate poverty, to have that as a goal, the way to get there, is to think about basic needs, basic human needs, is how they phrased it. And they didn't get this idea from nowhere. This group of powerful men, mostly, didn't get this idea from nowhere. They learned it from some experience in different parts of the world, including in India. And they took some ideas from a guy called Patamba Pant, who was a member of the Indian Planning Commission in the 50s and 60s. He was a statistician and economist, and he had some influence over the 5-year plan of India. And in that work, he suggested that basic human needs is the way to think about poverty. So don't think just about poverty as a problem. Think about what does it take to satisfy a person's basic human needs on a daily basis. Another idea that the ILO kind of borrowed and built on was from an American psychologist called Abraham Maslow. And his ideas are a little bit controversial, but they're very popular even now in the United States. I don't know if they're popular here. But Maslow said that each human person has a hierarchy of different kinds of needs. Their basic needs are physiological, and he went all the way up to kind of esteem needs and self-actualization needs, as he put it. And his thinking was also kind of influential on the ILO. So what I'd like you to do now is another little thought experiment for me. I'd like you to think about, if you had to make a list of basic needs, what would be on it? If you had to advise the International Labour Association, organization, about basic needs, what would you put on that list of basic needs? Does anyone want to give me an example of what they would think of as a basic need of a human being to survive? Yes. Food. Who agrees with that? Yeah, I think we need food, right? We need food. What would another basic need be? Shelter. Sorry? Shelter. Yes, I can see you've read the International Labour Organization's report, haven't you? Shelter. Yeah, what kind of shelter? Appropriate to where you are. You might need a different kind of shelter in Canada, in northern Canada, than you might in Botswana, say. Yeah, other ideas. We've got food, shelter.
Money. Anything money.
Money.
Yes.
Very good answer. That was not on the International Labour Organization's list, but very good answer. Clothing. Clothing, yes, that was on their list.
Water.
Water. Who said that? Who said water? Yeah, very good answer. Yeah, often gets forgotten. But yes, clean water is a need. What else? Education. Education. I think that was on their list, yes. Education. Healthcare. That was not on their list. Should have been.
Employment.
Sorry?
Employment.
Oh, employment. Yes, that was on their list. It was a conference on employment, of course, so they had to say that. Yeah.
And even
language, yeah. think they would have probably bundled that under education, but that is also a very good answer and more expansive. Yeah. Clean environment. That was not on their list, but I think that there should have been. Yeah. Relationships. Relationships. Now, that's a different kind of answer. Did you say that, sir, in the back? Oh, you're waiting. Okay, yep. Resources. 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 Yes, resources. Yes, same kind of answer as unity. Unity. Who said that? You did. Okay. No, they didn't care about unity, actually. This is the thing about the basic needs approach. In a way, it was about individuals, right? In a way, it had some bigger social issues in there, like education. It's hard to imagine that just as an isolated individual. But in some aspects, it was about just individuals, not a society. Okay, these are great answers. I think you've already proven that we have another... Oh, sorry, in the way back. Friendship. Friendships, very important, yes. They didn't say that, but I think everybody here would agree. Transportation. Transportation. Yes, very good. They did say that. Actually, they said public transport was a need in the 1970s. Excellent, excellent, excellent. You have proven yourselves to be imaginative question answers. Yes, we have one last
Happiness.
one. Happiness. Wouldn't that be lovely? Yes, if we had that as a basic human need. Okay, final one here. Safety. Safety, yes. I think some of the issues around shelter, for example, and around clothing and around schooling, they have to do with safety also. So these are great, great answers that you guys have come up with. Let's see what I had on my list, shall we? Profession. Sorry? Profession.
Yeah, we're done now. Yeah?
Okay, thank you. Did anyone say air? I think you forgot that we all need to breathe, right? I think you forgot. What's the first thing new mothers and fathers do? They check that the baby's breathing, right? This is the first thing humans do and the last thing they do, unfortunately. So breathing is important, right? So yeah, we need to breathe, and that means we need clean air. You can't breathe any old air and be healthy. Water, we need safe water, not just any old water. Food, you mentioned that. Nutritious food would be good. Don't want to live on French fries all the time. Shelter, we mentioned that. Sanitation, nobody mentioned that. Mustn't talk about that, right? Very embarrassing. But very, very important to have a place to go to the toilet that is clean and safe. Clothing, you said that. Sleep, no one mentioned sleep. Do you not sleep? I think probably in the shelter and the safety comments that was implied, right? That we need a place that we can lay down and get some sleep that's safe and secure and clean and keeps us sheltered. And we've already done this experiment. What would you add? Yeah, you've added a lot of different things. I think you've taken us in your answers beyond the basic stuff, right? The things that you might be able to get with money or resources into more psychological and even moral and kind of spiritual realms of thinking about friendships and relationships and how you are in the world. Yeah, these are very good ways that you've expanded this concept. So you've hit on exactly the tensions that arose when people started talking about basic needs in the 70s. They started questioning, well, what does it mean to have adequate food or adequate shelter? Is that enough? Are you truly human if you're just fed? It's kind of like we would do for a dog, right? Just give it enough food, it's fine. But no, is that okay for humans? No, it's probably not. So there are some issues that world leaders struggled with, just as you've been thinking it through. What do we include? What do we emphasize? Should we have a priority? Is shelter as important as food? Is clean air as important as safety? Is transportation as important as education? And why were they asking those questions? Because you can't do all of it at once, right? You have to prioritize. So people were thinking, which governments especially were thinking, what should they prioritize? And so how do we understand needs became a question. People had debates. Are we talking physical, just what I need for my body to survive tomorrow? Or are we talking more psychological, what I need to feel fulfilled and happy and productive and satisfied? Are we talking actually about absolute needs? Are we talking about the minimum that people would need to survive, physically survive, and we're okay if everyone meets that? Or are we actually talking about relative needs? Are we talking about why some people have a lot of needs that are not met, or at least not fully met, and other people have no problem meeting their daily needs, right? Are we talking about relative needs? And do we have kind of a finite or fixed idea about what needs are, or are we willing to expand it and consider things like happiness or things like money directly? So these are all very big tensions and debates that people had at the highest levels of global organizations and national governments in the 70s and on. Everybody kind of has the same slice of pie? Or do you try and grow the pie so that the slices can still be kind of a little bit unequal? See here, there's a big slice, there's a smaller slice. But the smaller slice, because the pie is bigger, is itself bigger. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah? If you make the whole pie bigger, then even the smallest slice is bigger. And then guess what? You don't have to do redistribution. You don't have to change the way you're cutting up the pie. Because it seems like the people that had the smaller slice, well, their slice is also a bit bigger now. So that's the logic of why economic growth became fundamental and was fundamental in India. It's fundamental all around the world still, right? As the logic here, you can grow the pie so that you can put off questions about redistribution. So what's happened since the 1970s? That was an awfully long time ago. What's happened since? Well, we've got a lot of basic needs. Logics have still been there. They're there in the Human Development Reports, which came out from 1990 on. They're there, which was itself, these reports were the ideas of some folks from South Asia. Amartya Sen and Mahbub al-Haq were the kind of intellectual forces behind that. And they were trying to create momentum behind the idea of human development, not just economic development, but human development. And this is drawing on the basic needs approach. And Amartya Sen himself, you probably know his ideas, he's expanded the notion of basic needs just in the way you guys did, and he's talked very interestingly about needs that are to do with being and needs that are to do with doing. And as you probably also know, he's very big on having, taking into account people's freedom of choice. Do they have options? And without options or the ability to decide things on their own terms, it doesn't matter perhaps how they stack up on the list of things in basic needs. And finally, we can also see this approach in the Millennium Development Goals, which you may have learned about, and now the present-day Sustainable Development Goals. These are all things that are still living on in terms of basic needs approach. But a lot has happened since the 1970s, and I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to check out a website called Gapminder. And the address is here, gapminder.org. How many of you have ever looked at that website? Okay, I would encourage you to write that down and look at it when you have access to the internet and check it out. It's a fascinating website that has been developed to kind of trace what's changed about the satisfaction of human needs since the actually as long as there's been data. So overall, what that website tells us and the data tells us is that things have gotten better. And this is an example of a graphic from the Gapminder website, gapminder.org. And what this does is it maps life expectancy up here, and it maps income along here. And then you can, when you go on the website, you can use a tool to show how things have changed over time. Each bubble represents a country, so again, it's a country-oriented data set. And the bigger the bubble, the bigger the country in terms of population. The red countries are in Asia, the blue countries are in Africa, and the other continents or regions are in different colors. So you can see this is India, here actually, in 2018. So India is the large red bubble under so-called level 2 here. And what you can do is you can trace any country you want and you can see it move through time. And what it shows is that life expectancy has increased greatly since these first debates about basic needs. Income has increased somewhat, but the trick is to figure out if they're completely connected, and I think you'll find they're not exactly. Another thing that has changed a lot since the 1970s is that we live in a much more interconnected world, don't we? We can be on the Facebook, we can be on Twitter, we can be on any number of platforms on our phone and checking out what's going on all around the world. This is the so-called shrinking world, right? So in terms of communication, we can feel like we're much closer to other people, even if they're far away. And it's certainly true that we know that our lives and our fates and our trajectory is much more interdependent. So we're very dependent on people far away and the decisions they make. So the world political map, that map of individual countries, doesn't make as much sense now as it did back in the 1970s, because the world it's changed. It's got a lot more interconnected. And in fact, one way that it's got very connected is economically. So our economies are very interconnected. Some people don't seem to understand that, including, unfortunately, the President of the United States right now. But the world is much more interconnected, and countries don't have as much power to act as they used to. So if we are thinking about basic human needs, how do we take into account the fact that we live in a much more interconnected world, that we live in a world where some things have got better for some people, and we live in a world where it's still not perfect. We still have a lot of injustice, we still have a lot of inequality, and we still have a lot of deprivation and relative lack of power. So how do we think about that? So, and this is where you guys are already doing amazing work. You're already thinking about what you can see in your local area, what you know about from your own experiences, and you're thinking about this in a very critical way. You're thinking, how can things be different? Not just what are they like now, but how can they be different? And one way that we can start to think about all the different projects you're doing and connecting them up is to think about the world as being full of strands of connection, and each place being connected to other places, even if they're far away. And there was a geographer called Doreen Massey, whose work I would highly recommend, especially for teachers. She's written some very interesting pieces about how we can think about our own environment, our own neighborhoods, our own schools, our own homes, and how we can think like a geographer about those things in very interesting ways. So here's my closing thoughts for you. How can we think about a world map of basic needs that isn't like that map of countries, that isn't like that map of income, that map of poverty, or even that bubble graph that I showed you from Gapminder? I think there's a few lessons that we can learn if we're really reflective and think seriously about this. One is that perhaps instead of assuming that we know what people need, or assuming that there's a problem, we should ask people, hey, what do you need? That's a different starting point than saying, oh, you know what, you lack adequate housing, you need, your shelter needs are not being met, right? Maybe that's not actually the first thing that a person would say to you. They might say, yeah, my house isn't very nice, there's some things wrong with it, but it's actually not the main thing that I worry about. I mostly worry about the safety of my daughter, or I mostly worry about the water in our neighborhood. So why don't we ask people instead of assuming that we know what they need? And why don't we listen when they answer? Too often people will ask the question and they'll fill out their survey and then they'll walk away never ever really listening and never really coming back and being accountable to the person that they just asked. So it's a different kind of engagement with our surroundings, with our neighbors, with our locality. And then I think you mentioned this already in your comments earlier. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not a $1.90 is the, you know, if everyone had that, the world's problems would be fine. No, it's not like that, right? People's needs are very different. They're very place-specific, and actually they're very time-specific. So we need to be really careful about saying that everybody needs the same thing in the same ways at the same time. And that's not an excuse for not recognizing people's needs, by the way. Sometimes that is. So let's remember that people define their own needs, and they do so on their own terms. That means they don't come up with a checklist from someone else. They come up with their own checklist, just like you guys did, right, for yourselves. And we should also recognize that people are not isolated individuals. No man is an island, right, the old saying goes. So no person is an island. People work together to meet their needs. They may not work that well together. It may not result in something always going right. So it's not always great. But people are in relationship with other people. They're not individual isolates in this planet. And so people form networks at lots of different scales. It could be a family. It could be an extended family. It could be a neighborhood. It could be a community organization. It could be a religious organization. People have all kinds of very creative ways of meeting their needs as groups or as networks. And in doing this, people make sense of their decisions, right? They're not making crazy decisions. People are allocating their time and their effort in ways that they have thought through. And we need to honor that and respect that when we're talking about any kind of geographies of needs. And in the end, in a just world, everybody could meet their needs. But in today's world, it's not like that, right? So how do we make change? And what I loved about reading the abstracts in the program is that I think in almost every case, there's an eye on that, right? People are looking at the details of the issue that they've discovered, but they're also thinking a little bit about, well, could it be better? Could things be different? And that is exactly the kind of imagination that you guys have and that you mustn't lose. That's so precious. So I would say that imagination, rethinking categories, rethinking the way we interact with each other, reimagining the social world is the key here. And yeah, sure, in the end it might come down to digging a well, it might come down to providing housing materials, it might come down to supporting organizations. Of course, it might, but it also requires reimagining a different future. So I commend you for this conference. I commend Dr. Balachandran and Dr. Nast and others for their leadership, the hosts here at the school. You are setting the scene for a very important set of discussions. And I agree with earlier speakers who talked about this being a very hopeful event for the future of thinking differently about geographical needs, the geographies of daily needs. So I hope I got the words right here. I relied on Google to get the translations. So if there's anything wrong, it's Google's fault, not mine. But thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Susan Roberts, for a very interesting talk there. Oh, wow. This is nice. We have time for just a few questions. If anybody has any question, please put your hand up. One of us will bring a mic to you so you can speak into the mic. Before you ask a question, please identify yourself. What is your name, which school or college you're from, and then ask your question, okay? If you have any questions, please put your hand up, or even comments. Okay? No questions? Okay. I have something I want to ask you. During the next 3 days that you're going to be listening to student presentations on various topics, one of the things that will be very helpful for us, I think, as we reflect on this year's conference, if you can tell us what you found, address some of the points you raised in your presentation today about the basic needs and especially Maslow's pyramid and all that. So if you can give us some idea of how the framework that you used today, how the presentations and the topics in these presentations at the conference, how they fit that framework, if they fit. That would be something very useful to us, I think, to publish as well.
Okay, thank you for the question. So I think I'm not a very good keynote speaker because I haven't given you an answer, like a single framework, right, to fit everything into. So sorry about that. I think what I might have done is make things more complicated. But I think that's actually the way we start thinking things through. So I don't have a set of answers about, oh, this is the framework that we could apply everywhere. I've given you some ideas about ways that you can think about basic needs, that you can think about the geographies of our needs. And I think so I'm going to avoid the question a little bit here, but I think if you can imagine ways to, when you see someone talking about, well, the problem is this one thing, it's really never like that. And I think all of your research shows it's never one single framework that's the answer, or one single thing that's the cause of anything. It's a more complicated world. So I think the basic needs approach is good because at heart I think humans have material bodily needs that we have the obligation to figure out how to meet those needs, whether that's in our locality or our world. But sometimes that gets so abstract so quickly that it's hard to think in that way. So that's why I was at the end trying to get you to think about what you know and start with your own experiences and your own places in the world.
I was thinking more in terms of your reflections on the themes that you will hear during the 3 days. If you can kind of give us a summary of the later on when you get back. Summary of what your reactions, responses are to the range of topics.
Yeah, the topics are great. So I really found it interesting how many people focused on environmental issues. So thinking about how do we, and that really was missing from my talk. I mean, you could say clean water is an environmental issue, clean air is an environmental issue, obviously, but you guys are looking, in many of the presentations, looking exactly at what kinds of things can be done to improve the environmental quality in your neighborhoods and in your schools in some cases, and I thought that was great. Transportation was a theme that came up. It was identified as a basic need, but some of your work is on difficulties facing people in just mobility and just moving around the city or the neighborhood. So those were some very important things. And then I saw a lot of very interesting work on questions of safety and kind of equality in local environments. That could be families or schools, and I liked many of the abstracts on that theme. So yeah, very exciting.
Thank you very much. Anybody else have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, a couple of announcements to make. Because of technical difficulties, we are running behind schedule. So, from here, we move to the various workshops. The integrated movement workshop will be here. It will take about 10 minutes to move the chairs, stack them up and to the side, so the center of the space can be open. There are not many people can take any of the workshops because we are limited by the size of the classrooms. Here, however, for the integrated movement workshop, there is room for a lot of people. You're welcome to attend that. These signs have been posted behind this auditorium. Classroom 1 will be on the first floor, 9th standard classroom, if you want to make a note of it. Classroom 1, first floor, 9th standard classroom. No, only which students assignment was on. Classroom 2 will be second floor AV room. And there will be volunteers to guide you, not to worry. Just I'm telling you so that you can have a note of it. Classroom 3 will be third floor, 8th standard classroom. Third floor, 8th standard classroom. Classroom 4 will be third floor, 7th standard classroom. Classroom 4, third floor, 7th standard classroom.
had the whole world at our feet, watching seasons change. Our roads were lined with adventure, mountains in the way couldn't keep us from the sea. Here we stand, open arms. This is home where we are, ever strong in the world that we made. I still hear you in the breeze, see your shadow Summer in the hills, those hazy days I do remember. We were running still, had the whole world at our feet, watching seasons change. Our roads were lined with adventure, mountains in the way couldn't keep us from the sea. Here we stand, open arms. This is home where we are, ever strong in the world that we made. I still hear you in the breeze, see your shadows in the trees, holding on. Memories never change.
Activate it first right now so we can stream tomorrow.
Can you?
This phone is so like, look at this.
It's meeting.
Mine, this is so slow. Like 558 KB and shit.
Kanish. What? We just did this yesterday.
You have another idea.
Hmm? You have another idea. Change the name probably.
And then on YouTube gaming station there. Directly. Normally, your phone also can stay
My phone doesn't work.
All degree rhythmic.
You have no idea. YouTube gaming will record my screen. On record. It needs to be activated. How do you activate this, dude? Can you activate it now? So we can be ready for tomorrow.
It is activated.
Then
Okay. Okay. One second, dude. Update functional movement harmony to create a mind. Let's just say creative movement.
principal of Army Public School come?
No, the new one did.
Integrated movement, not creative movement.
It said creative
It
movement.
is integrated movement.
Look. Movement in harmony through creative movement.
Dude, I can't do anything there. Have to activate it and stuff.
Do you know how to activate it? Because I did it yesterday.
I'm trying. Oh my god, I know why it's not coming.
Why?
From YouTube live on mobile, your channels must have over 100 subscribers.
Oh.
You have to search for me. No, I can't stream now. 800 subs.
I have 75.
Huh?
I have 75 now.
I subscribe to you, then 76. Workshop or something. I have to agree. This is not doing anything. Huh? What are we even doing?
I don't know. Quality content. Quality content.
Push the tweet and
Play the cup song. The cup song. You're there, no? And all the people from grow. Okay. You think I should switch up the mic and some background music?